What is this? There's a note. Take care of my child till morning. Yee? Nope.
G'day, you cheeky dogs. Disney just announced their new animated feature film for next year called Hexed. It'll be hitting theaters in November 2026, but based off the concept and specifically the name itself, a lot of fans think that Hex just literally sounds like the Owl House but with a boy. And I mean, a lot of people feel this way. So today we are going to break down all the ways that this could possibly be basically just like the boy Disney princess version of the Owl House.
I'm a bad boy. Ugh!
Or is Disney trying to make their own Harry Potter instead? But just Harry Potter if he still had a mum. And of course, if you love animation, cartoons, Disney, things like that, don't forget to hit those buttons down below so that way the YouTube algorithm lords know that you like this kind of content as well as we try to work through this new stage of the YouTube algorithm change. And as always, I really appreciate the support. So first up, what is Hexed? This is what the specific announcement at D23 said.
Accessible only to those that the ordinary world calls weird, but the world of Hexed calls magic. At the center of this story, the center of the story is a teenage oddball and his mom who discovers that his weirdness is actually hidden magic trying to shine through. And when they're both transported to a world of magic, they discover that what can often make us feel different may be the most special part of who we are. And when it's celebrated, the entire world is better for it.
Basically, to break it down, the boy is weird. The magical world is called Hex and his weirdness is actually magic. He's described as an oddball and that his hidden magic has always been trying to shine through. Him and his mum are both transported to the world called Hex, and in that world his differences are celebrated and the world and him are better for it. Now, in comparison to that with the Owl House, the main character Luz, who is a girl, finds herself also transported to a magical world called the Boiling Isles. So yes, different, Hex, Boiling Isles. But in the Boiling Isles, magic is real. However, she is transported there alone, but later in the series, her mum does join her as well. Now, obviously we have some similarities here. Both stories are about the kid being transported into a magical world.
Stop adorably hopping away, you... Huh? Whoa, I thought I had a lot of weird stuff. But this is impressive.
And this kid is technically ordinary, but a bit weird.
Yeah, your fantasy world is holding you back. Do you have any friends? Real ones. Not imagined or drawn or reptilian.
But there are some differences as well that I should point out. Luz, as a human, does not possess any natural magical powers, like it seems that the boy in Hexed apparently does have these powers.
Humans think magic is made out of thin air, but that's stupid. Everything comes from something. It comes from a sack of magic bile attached to a witch's heart.
Oh, gross! But how can I, little old Luce, do magic if I don't have a magic bile sack?
You know, I'm not actually sure.
What?
Luz learns how to draw glyphs and draw magic from the environment as well as the Titan to cast spells. And yes, she is considered an oddball, similar to this boy in the movie Hexed as well. But Luz's oddball weirdness is not the source of her power. Instead, it comes from her creative imagination and her love for fantasy. Whereas the concept for the boy in the movie Hexed seems to be more almost Harry Potter. He has these natural abilities that are making him weird, and these abilities is magic. And I mentioned Harry Potter because it's kind of like that situation where Harry Potter, he didn't know that he had magic, but all these weird things were happening around him because of his magic. It does sound a little bit like that's the idea of what they're using for Hexed. And of course, being pulled or teleported into a magical world is not an original concept. It's literally an isekai. This concept is as old as time by this point. So whilst both protagonists are ordinary kids pulled into a magical world, there's still differences. But let's talk about the title, Hexed, because I feel that's where most people would have just seen it and initially been this is just Owl House. So yes, Hex of course is a word synonymous with magic and curses and things like that. However, Hex is the culture of the Owl House.
Wow, my first day at Hexside.
The school in the Boiling Isles is called Hexside, School of Magic and Demonics.
Welcome, Luz, to Hexside School of Magic and Demonics.
Hooray!
One of the most popular books is called Hexcellent, Tales from the Boiling Isles. They say hex me instead of kick me. They have a snack called Hex Mix.
I'm not sure what you're going through, but That much Hex mix can't be good for your stomach.
The fandom of the Owl House refers to the main friendship group as the Hex Squad. The word Hex is very, very, very closely linked with the Owl House. So of course, when you see there's a movie called Hexed about a magical teen who is transported into a magical world, yeah, you kind of just assume, oh yeah, Owl House, but then you find out it's a boy. So I can see why people feel like this is just a gender swapped Owl House. The next big thing though I feel like we should talk about is the mums of it all. Yes, both the Owl House and Hex seem to have like a focus on the mum as the main parent for the story, and both mums travel to their respective magical worlds as well, with their weird kid. Now, Hexed highlights that the boy has a type A mum who sounds like a controlling parent straight out of Turning Red.
No, absolutely not.
What?
This is like a really common trope in Disney to have a mum like this. This would mean that she is impatient, competitive, work-obsessed, aggressive, stressed, and achievement-orientated. However, it isn't also super common for like the kid to have his mum tag along on the adventure, especially when they're being transported into the magical world. So that is sort of like a more unique concept, I guess, in some ways that isn't used as much. However, like I said, it does have a lot of like similarities to the Owl House. So Luz's mum, Camilla in the Owl House, is definitely not a type A personality. She does worry her daughter isn't normal, and it seems that in both cases, family tension is basically at the heart of the story. However, Camilla is portrayed as loving and protective, maybe a little bit impatient at the start, but overall very compassionate and kind and gentle. So not a typical type A personality at all. Also, her joining Luz happens much later in the series, and of course a TV show has longer to tell a story than a movie, but that should be noticed as well that she wasn't with her daughter for weeks when she was first transported into the Boiling Isles.
Mija? Luz, what is this terrible place? Espérate un momento. This isn't camp. Have you been here all these weeks? And is that a weapon?
The next thing is kind of like the vibe and the drawings and the fantasy element of it all, because again, there's a couple of similarities, but a couple of differences too. D23 released the concept art for Hexed, and the vibe is a little bit more like Encanto. The color scheme is bright pinks and aquas and gold tones, whereas the Owl House was more of the opposite. It was more dark and a sort of more dull color scheme, with the city more autumn or fall colors rather than the bright colorful Encanto style, which is what we see in Hexed. Now, both towns do have a more medieval style building and houses to them, which is pretty typical for fantasy shows. Hexed also shows this three-eyed magical flying cat character, which I'm sure will be the animal character for the movie, as Disney always requires there to be one. Nothing here yet looks like the animals from the Owl House though, and it definitely not as scary as what some of them are either. Hexed seems a little bit more on the cute side and the more traditional Disney princess style. So while they both have very like bold fantasy looks, they're very different types of looks, and the only similarity realistically is that they both have like the medieval style towns, which is in basically every fantasy kind of genre, TV show and movie and things like that. Now, the last thing I did kind of want to talk about was obviously like the queer representation, because a lot of people feel like that was one of the reasons the Owl House did end up getting cancelled, and the movie Hexed has said nothing about this whatsoever, and again, that's also not very surprising. A lot of fans have speculated whether the main character might be queer-coded, just like there were debates for Inside Out 2 and for Elio, but again, there's like no word whatsoever on that, and they could change it as much as they did change for Elio as well. Where of course, the Owl House is quite famous for its queer representation. Luz and Amity's relationship was a really big part of the show, but it did of course have pushback from the Disney execs. So honestly, if Disney decides to lean into it for Hexed, people are going to complain. If they don't lean into it for Hexed, people are going to complain. They're going to complain either way. It's a no-win situation, and honestly, I think the success of it should be based on the plot of it rather than the sexuality of the characters, because we currently know nothing about that at all for Hexed, and we only know the very, very basics of the plot. So, Cheeky Dogs, what do you think? Do you think that Hexed is going to be basically just a gender-swapped version of the Owl House, or is Disney trying to make their own Harry Potter instead, but just Harry Potter if he still had a mum? Also, do you think it's going to be a hit, or do you think it's going to be a huge flop like Snow White? Let me know all your thoughts and feelings in that comment section down below. And don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe button, and that bell for notifications. I am going to be trying to do like some sort of deep dive into Disney related kind of TV shows or movies and things like that at least once a week, alongside the Bluey content that I do as well. But until my next video, I have picked you Cheeky Dogs out a few other videos that maybe you would like to watch, and I'll see you all in another video. Bye!